Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society. And today we're taking a little walk through our archives, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite items. You might know that besides being the Adams County Historical Society, we're also sort of the repository for Adams County. So we actually have all the tax records from Adams County for the various townships and municipal boroughs. We actually have the deed records for Adams County, and we have the estate papers for Adams County, starting in January 1800 when Adams becomes its own independent county. And here, there are hundreds of thousands of documents in the folders in these files. But here's actually Robert McConaughey of Manalapan Township, who was estate number 2. He died in 1800. Now, of course, we have our estate papers here in order, alphabetical order by name. We have them in boxes. But originally, they just came with a number. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. This is number 2. I would have shown you number 1, but I don't know where number 1 is in the alphabetical order. But this is number 2. So let's move on to something else. We're very proud of our high density storage where we can roll shelves back and forth, and on the shelves we have archival boxes and we have stuff in archival files, and these files are our collections, and there's a vast variety of stuff in our collections. So I just wanted to show you a sampling of the things we have here. This is one of the more popular items in our collection, and this is one of 3 William Tipton sample albums that we have. And these sample albums would have been on William Tipton's showroom cabinet or showroom table when you came in, and you could go through his sample albums and you could pick out an image, and then he would make it into a stereo card if he didn't have some already made, and sell you the stereo card. He also had a catalog he sent out by mail. You could order these images, but each of his images had a number on it, and you could order the image. Now, some of the images were actually from the Tyson brothers in 1863. And I'm sure undoubtedly he had index cards that had civilian studio portraits, which we don't have any of those examples available in our collection. But what happened is William Tipton's granddaughter donated these sample albums to us, Ellen Tipton Beeler, prior to her death. And so a large amount of the photographs that you see of the battlefield views or well-known individuals in the town come from the 3 Tipton sample albums we have. There's actually a 4th Tipton sample album that is known, that it is in the Clement Library at the University of Michigan, and it's monument dedications around the battlefield. On this shelf, you can see we have assorted Adams County newspapers. At some point, the Times News Company gave us all the newspapers from Adams County they had in their possession. So we have the Compiler and Adams Sentinel from 1800. We have the New Oxford Item and the East Berlin Comet, and we have full runs of these papers in hard copy, although most of them are available on microfilm at the State Library or now on newspaper websites such as newspapers.com. But we have some other rare stuff, like prior to the formation of Adams County, to get your news, you'd have to go to a newspaper from York County. And here are 1790s copies of the Pennsylvania Herald and York General Advertiser. And at that time, this was York County. So these newspapers cover the news in our area also. And so we have some original copies there. Now we have a vast amount of newspapers from the various towns around Adams County, including some short-lived newspapers. Like you might not know, there was a newspaper printed in Littlestown, and there was a newspaper printed in York Springs, or East Berlin had its own newspaper, or New Oxford for a time. But here's a newspaper that was published for just 2 years in Fairfield in the 1970s. And we actually just got a donation that has a couple years of this paper, although we already had a bound volume of it. Here, when we talk about things in our collection that we come across that are different, that people haven't really paid much attention to, I like to point out these maps. There was a series of topographical maps done. I guess they were printed together in the early 1880s, but it's from a survey that's done in the late 1870s, early 1880s of the South Mountain Range from the Maryland border up along the Adams-Franklin County border. And what's fascinating about these topographical maps is it shows the area of South Mountain associated with the Union, or I should say the Southern Army's retreat after the Battle of Gettysburg. And this is a topic that a lot of people who are into, cavalry after the battle are interested in because of all the skirmishing in this area. And I noticed that people have trouble, when they draw maps of this area because, you have an Adams County map, you have a Franklin County map, and the early maps aren't that good, but this is really the first nice topographical map that ties Adams and Franklin County into this early road system. And so you can look on this map and you can see the town of Fairfield and Jack's Mountain Road and Iron Springs Road. And you can look on here and see the location of the Monterey House. And you can see where the Monterey Pass is. And you can see the whole route and the whole area where the battle occurred on top of the mountain in the early morning hours of, or I should say the late July 4th, 1863 battle into the morning of July 5th. Also, this is where General John Buford's men camped on June 29th, 2 days before the battle. And of course, on the morning of June 30th, they got involved in a skirmish at Fairfield and then eventually came back to Gettysburg. But it shows this area, shows the road, shows the terrain features, shows the houses, and of course, one of my favorite areas in the county, it's actually in Franklin County, to visit the Devil's Race Course. Maybe I'll throw up a photograph of this video of that. So, we have lots of family trees. At heart, we are a genealogical association, and we have lots of stuff with local genealogies. And there's nothing I like more than some of these early family trees that actually look like a tree. And so here is the Weichert family tree. And if we follow the Weicherts up their family tree, and we come over here is Jacob Weichert, who lives on the backside of Little Round Top with his wife Sarah. And here's all their kids. And we go all the way to the end. And of course, we have David Martin Luther Weichert. And of course, this is Blind Davy, the man who ran a souvenir stand on the backside of Little Round Top, and his children. So you might be familiar with Blind Davy. But there's a really interesting family tree. We also have in our collection some really rare stuff that we hardly get out because it's not in very good condition. But here is an original printing of the survey that was done of Evergreen Cemetery by James Belden of Baltimore, who was the landscape architect that laid out the initial lots in Evergreen Cemetery. Undoubtedly, this document is from the 1850s, probably 1855, and it has the names of the avenues. James Belden is the architect, so why not have a Belden Avenue in Evergreen Cemetery that leads to a cul-de-sac named Rosemary Dell? And of course, you might know where that is if you know anything about the cemetery, because this ivy rock is still a prominent feature in the cemetery, although we have it covered with grass at the moment. But you can actually look at the numbers of the plots. And of course, this correlates to the burial records that were kept in the cemetery in the early years. And so we have some of those burial record books which tell you the permit number and the area. Like this is lot number 14 in looks like section K there. But you can just look at the people who are buried there, and oftentimes they give you the cause of death and maybe the nativity of the person, and a little bit more information about them. So we have early records from Evergreen Cemetery that were given to our society early on. And you know, that number is an early number, 1024, meaning this was given to us in the late 1940s. And one thing, you know, we're still taking donations in our archives, and we never know what new item might come in. Here is a collection. This cabinet was actually given to us by the Gettysburg School Board just recently. They asked us in an email if we were interested in it. It sounded intriguing. I guess it had been moved around from school to school, from storage facility to storage facility, but basically it's student records, some of the student records dating from the 1920s and 30s. Here is a Dorothy, and we'll conceal her last name so as not to bring shame on the family. But she's not a very good student, and you can see from her grades she gets C, Ds, and Fs. Oh, she does get a B in art. And I love the comment over here. There's a picture of her. She's in 5th grade. Slow, but a good worker, and probably will leave school at 16. So needs all she can get. So if you like the historical content we've been placing on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. And also, if you're interested in learning how bad of a student your grandfather was, visit our archives.